Okay, so I am live. Um, Live without a heads up, in case I say something too stupid. Uh, in case I say something too stupid, and I want to like delete this and retry before I put it out. Um, I was listening to the recording I posted last time. I did say a few things that were like way technically wrong. I'm not way technically wrong, but kind of for me wrong. Didn't want to get too obsessed with it. That's kind of why I'm going live. Otherwise, it would take me like 6 or 7 hours to upload a video because I'm probably saying things I don't like, or I wish I would say different. But I'm trying to give it as close to like this real classroom presence as possible. Um, yeah. So let's get a refresher about what we're doing. Yeah. So we're trying to come up with a language that allows us to calculate the truth or falsity of conclusions. Okay. We want that kind of law-like understanding of truth, and we think that we make this sort of logical, this assumption of the world that's kind of logical in some way, right? Right. Um, so we're going to try to come up with a language that can give us this law-like calculation, but is somehow capturing the natural languages that we use today, like Japanese or English or Spanish or whatever. Right. And to do this, to come up with this sort of formal language that can do this for us, um, we're going to have our, just as spoken as last time, um, we're going to have our syntax. So this is our rules for well-formed formulas. And then we're going to have the meaning behind the connectives, right? And this is going to allow our language to represent the stuff that we mean in English, right? So if you remember last time, I laid out that this is the definition of a whiff, and this is what 6.1 is getting at without like explicitly saying it in this way, right? Remember, a whiff is a well-formed formula, right? So let's take a look at this. All right, I have a set group of symbols I'm allowed to use within this language. I have my basic propositions. So these are things like A, B, C. If I run out of letters, I can use A1, that's a unique proposition, A2, A3, etc. So I have what feels like an infinite amount of letters in my language. And then I have my connectives. And this is what's going to connect these basic atomic propositions into compound propositions. And this is the way the book refers to it, compound propositions, right? So think about an atomic chemical, right? And then a compound chemical. Same kind of language here. All right. And then we have our punctuation. Really, when we talk propositional logic, the only punctuation we use is this version of parentheses. But the book uses these versions because it makes it easier to see, right? If we're being super formal, this is sufficient enough. We want as scarce a language as possible. We want as scarce a language as simple language as possible with as much meaning as possible. And this means just as much as those other parentheses. Okay. All right. Then we had our rules for formula, right? So all well-formed formulas are defined as any basic proposition, so A, B, C, etc., all capital case. Okay. And then we have here, this is our rules for building compound propositions, right? Or compound whiffs. So if alpha and beta are whiffs, so these are width variables. In the book, especially at 6.2, they say, so like this is, so capital A, this is a basic proposition, and then lowercase a, that's our width variables. But here I'm using alpha and beta, because they're just way more distinct than our constant letters up here, right? So when the book talks about lowercase letters are just variables, just like this. Anything that is a with can fit inside these variables, right? So if alpha and beta are withs, whatever withs they are, then so is not alpha, alpha and beta with parentheses on each side, alpha or either alpha or beta with parentheses on the outside, if alpha then beta with parentheses on the same side, alpha if and only if beta, right? And so what page is that on? Where? Yeah, 336. They kind of give a summary of what we're going to mean, but when we say these things in English, so if I were to say the conjunction, I would say and, or and, but, also, right? You can even say furthermore, right? And so nothing else is considered a with. Nothing else is allowed in our language to be, nothing else is allowed in our language, at least in formula. So I'm not going to have a star. I'm not going to have a with and then a tilde or a not after this. I'm not going to have two withs next to each other without a connective. Okay. I'm not going to have, let's see here. In this style of notation, I'm not going to have a connective without a with on each side. What else are we not going to have? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Anything that's not in here is not going to be in our with. And this is the syntax. This is going to be the bones of our language. So now we need to put some meaning into our formulas. This is going to be the semantics. And this is where how the book describes 6.1. This is what we mean by the meaning. So like when I say something in English, like those are apples. Those are apples. I can represent that with A. So this is a formula. I know it's a formula because any basic proposition can be a formula. Okay. And the meaning behind this formula is what we would call the semantics, right? The semantical meaning, the propositional meaning. This would mean those are apples. If I were to say those are not apples and those are basketballs, or these are basketballs, that is how I would formulate this sort of thing, right? But yeah, we're going to need some sort of deeper definition so we really understand how we're going to calculate truth. And that was this homework for 6.2, right? The homework for 6.2 was about, right, as the book puts it, computing the functions within the language to determine if the statement's true. Yeah. So let's define our semantics. Let's see here. Let me get a drink of water. So okay, we're going to define our connectives using what we're going to call a truth table. And this is Exactly what you see in 6.2. Yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to lay out all the possible combinations of truth for each whiff, for each type of whiff we can have. And that's how we're going to understand the meaning of all of our whiffs from here on out. Okay, so that sounds really confusing. Don't worry. Let's say I have some whiff, and I'll call it alpha. Okay, the possible combinations of truth for alpha. If alpha is a proposition, if alpha is a well-formed formula, that proposition is either going to be T or F. Okay, so let's say that it is, that's going to be true for all whiffs. All whiffs are either going to be true or false. But let's say I have something like this. I have A. A is either going to be in the world or it's not. It's either going to be true if it is in the world. It's either going to be false if it's not in the world. Okay. And so whiffs are going to be the same thing. All right. All whiffs are going to be the same thing, just like A. Yeah. So let me erase this. We are going to define not alpha, okay, as this. Anytime alpha is true, not that true is going to be false. Anytime alpha is false, I know that not alpha is going to be a true statement. Okay? So the truth of this compound proposition is determined by the truth value of its pieces. So if this piece, how big or small, if this is true, and I say not this, I will be saying something false. If this whiff, if alpha is not in the world, I know that alpha is false. And so saying not alpha would give me a truth. So when I have a whiff, not alpha, this statement is only true when the whiff directly to its right is false. That's going to be the only time this statement is true, and you can think about this in your ordinary language. Yeah? If I say, let's see here I am in the world. And I say the English sentence, I do not exist. I do not exist. Okay. I would formalize that as E standing for I exist, I do exist. And then I would use the disjunction to signal not this. So this is not true. Okay? Let's look at the facts. Is E true here in this world? Yeah, it is. So if that's true, I can look at my definition of a negation through truth value here. I know that that's false. And that totally captures what we mean with the truth and falsity of the statement, I do not exist. It's obviously false to say that I do not exist. Why? Because I do exist. Because it's true that I exist. And so to put a not on a T makes the whole whiff false. If I were dead and this were true, and this were false, then the statement not F would be true. Yeah? Okay. So, hey, I'm putting parentheses. The book doesn't. The book should, but it is just easier to read without the parentheses. The parentheses are going to be important because they're going to punctuate the different pieces of each whiff as the whiffs get bigger, but we'll see that in a second. Or you guys should have already seen this on the homework. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lay out all the possible situations or combinations of truth between these two whiff components, right? These two atomic pieces of this compound whiff. So I know that there's going to be a world in which alpha is true and beta is true. I know there's going to be a world in which, it's possible, in which alpha is true and beta is false, in which alpha is false, beta is true, and alpha is false, and beta is false. Okay, now let's close our minds for a second. Is there a possible conversation, or is there a possible combination of truth that we have missed out on, that we haven't represented? Think about it. No, you can't represent it, right? Think about that necessary and possibility, or that necessary possible talk we had when we were talking about deduction. This is totally capturing that idea, right? I cannot imagine another combo of truth. I have exhausted all the possible worlds. A world in which T and T, a world in which T and F, a world in which F and T, a world in which F and F. This is all the possible combinations of truth we have. And we are going to designate a function for this operator. So anytime, in the same way we go here, if I say alpha and beta, and alpha is true and beta is true, the statement alpha and beta is going to also be true. Okay? If I say alpha and beta and this component is false, so alpha is true, but beta is false, my statement alpha and beta is going to be false. If this is false and this is true, the statement alpha and beta is false. And if I say alpha and beta, and alpha is false and beta is false, the compound statement alpha and beta is false. Yeah. And so now I can understand the meaning of the dot here by the truth conditions for the propositions that are going to fit inside this whiff. Okay. What I said right there was really complicated. So you should rewind the last 20 seconds and listen to it a couple times. But we define this operator. We define the meaning of this operator by the truth conditions of the propositions that are going to fit inside this whiff. So let's say that alpha is A and beta is B, and alpha stands for let's see here. What do we want alpha to stand for? Let's stick with something A. Adam plays, let's see here, golf. I don't know if you can play golf. Yeah, I guess you can play golf. And then B stands for, let's see here, Brad eats beef. Okay. Now let's say, okay, that I'm in a world in which Adam is playing golf, but it's not true that Brad eats beef. Which world would this be? This would be here, right? A is true and B is false. If I were to say A and B, and this statement is only made true by the facts, we would say that this statement is false given the world we're in. Now let's say that Adam is eating or playing golf and Brad is eating beef. This statement would be totally true. And in fact, this is the only situation in which a statement like this can be true. Conjunctions are only true when both the component parts are true. Okay? So, let's move on. Let's say I want to make the claim, or let's say we want to define either alpha or beta. T, T, F, F, T, F, T, F. Okay. This is all the possible combinations of truth I have. Yeah, that looks bad. Sorry, guys. All right. If I say either Adam, let's say either Adam plays golf or Brad eats beef, and I know that both A and B are true, they're in the world, this statement is going to be true. Okay, so anytime I have a whiff like this and both its parts are true, I'm going to have it being true. Let's say I just have Adam. I just have A. So if I have either A or B, yeah, either A or B, and I have A, don't have B, that statement is still going to be true. That is going to be a sufficient situation to grant truth for this sort of statement. Now let's say I have a false for Adam, so Adam's not in the world, but Brad eating beef is in the world. For this valuation, so F and T, I would have T, and down here, if I don't have either Adam playing golf in the world or Brad eating beef in the world, the statement either Adam plays golf or Brad eats beef, this is going to be false. So when we define the disjunction is only going to be false when both its component parts are false. Yeah. So there's something weird here, right? That both the parts can be true, and yet this is true. There's some really deep reason for why we allow this to be clear. We call this actually an inclusive disjunction, not an exclusive disjunction. So an exclusive disjunction, we'd actually use this operator. We would call that, but we don't include that in the language because, well, it's not the most efficient part of the language, right? If you want to know more about that, if you guys really want to know why these are the exact operators that we're using, reach out to me and I'll give you some literature about why we don't have, like we're not going to have an operator that's going to give me all F's, that no matter what you put into it, it's always going to be false. We're not going to have something like that in our language. Yeah, we're not going to define that as meaning anything in our language. If you want to know why, yeah, hit me up and I'll send you some stuff, right? Or I'll, like, phone call you or something. Yeah. Okay, so gonna erase this. Yeah. So let's look at whiffs. Let's look at whiffs like this. So if alpha, then beta. Okay. I'm going to lay out all the possible combinations of truth TT, TF, FT, FF. Okay. And now I'm going to start to compute these things, right? So let's say, let's put some basic propositions in here. Let's say I want to deal with if, let's see here, if D equals you are a dog, and then M equals you are a mammal. Okay. D stands for you are a dog, M is going to stand for you are a mammal. And let's say I have this where if D if D them N. All right, and I'm gonna do the truth table for this. We're just gonna plug it in up here. So let's pretend like the whiffs also stand for alpha stands for D, beta stands for M. Okay. Now, let's say it's true that you are a dog and it's true that you are a mammal. Would the statement, if you're a dog, then you're a mammal, would that statement be true for you? And we want to say, hell yes, it would. Okay. Now let's say that it's true that you were a dog. So it's true. But you being a mammal would somehow be false. The entire statement for if you are a dog, then you're a mammal, that statement would have to be false. Why? Because I could have the sufficient condition be true, and yet somehow it not necessarily be true that M. Okay? So in this situation, if I have a conditional claim where if alpha then beta, and the alpha part of the whiff is true and the beta part of the whiff is false, that entire statement is going to be false. All right. All right. So let's say you are not a dog. So that's false. D is false. And let's say that it's true, though, that you are a mammal. Does that make the conditional false? Is that enough to falsify this conditional claim? Let's think about it for a second. You are not a dog, so D is false for you, and yet M is true for you. This line 3, when it refers to this conditional, this is the world you're actually in. You guys are actually in this world where you're a mammal and you're not a dog. But isn't it still true for you? Isn't it still true that if you were a dog, then you would be a mammal? Certainly. It's certainly still true. In fact, it's true right now. If you were a dog, you would be a mammal. That is the truth, right? This statement is satisfied well, let me not jump ahead. Let's say that this is false and this is false. So you're not a dog, you're not a mammal. Let's say that you are a frog. Let's say that F is true and F is equal to you being a frog. Oops, that's confusing with the F's. Or what's not a mammal? Hey, you're an amphibian. Okay. Isn't it still true for you that if you were a dog, then you would be a mammal? Yes, it totally would, right? This is true. And like a lot of your guys' intuition should be like flaring up at the moment. It doesn't seem like it should be the case, but you have to remember that these conditional claims are never saying actually anything. They're saying that if this condition is met, then this condition will necessarily have to be met. And the only time that this is going to be false, the only time conditionals are false is when the antecedent or the necessary condition is false and the sufficient condition is true. Yeah. So I'm going to back this up for a second. I want to compare this to the conjunction for a moment. So in a conjunctive claim, alpha and beta, T, T, F, F, T, T, F, F. Whoops. Sorry. T, F, T, F. Okay. T and T, that's true. This is going to be F. This is going to be F. This is going to be F. So the truth conditions for an AND claim are that both of the conjuncts are actually true. Remember, this language is built upon correspondence. Okay? Alpha is true, and then B is true. So the statement alpha and beta has to be true. If I find out that if I know that this is true, I know actually this and I know actually this. The conditional claim doesn't tell me much about actuality because it isn't essentially about what's actual, but instead it's showing that relationship between the two propositions. So if I find out that the conditional is actually true, well, that doesn't tell me anything about what's actually going on here. And this is what this operator is trying to capture here, right? That there are a lot of different ways in which a conditional claim like this could be true. But there's one specific way in which a conditional claim like this is false. And it's when the necessary condition for the sufficient condition isn't met, but somehow we still have the sufficient condition. So if I were to say, if you're a person, then you're a mammal. That being a mammal is a necessary condition for being a person. And yet, there's someone in the world that is actually a person and not actually a mammal, then this is a dumbass claim, right? It's false. It's not true. It can't be true. Yeah? Again, this is correspondence talk. Okay? So, let's see here. Let's try to think of a conditional claim that's, yeah. Think back to our last exam, the George Washington getting his head cut off, right? Let's say that D stands for you are dead. D1 stands for you are decapitated. If you died, but you were not decapitated, just like George Washington, the conditional claim here is false. And this is how we define these sorts of whiffs, these formulas. Yeah, in this way. Okay. Only time the conditional claim is false is when the necessary condition is false and the sufficient condition is true. Anytime, okay? Anytime. Let me just erase this. Anytime you run into a conditional claim and you know that the necessary condition is true, that statement is going to be true, okay? And you could look to you could know that by looking at the definition we set up, or you can kind of know that through, well, just our normal language, right? Our natural language. This formula, this definition is trying to capture what we mean with our if-thans. Yeah. This is, again, this is the semantics. This is the meaning behind our syntax, behind the formula, right? And so, yeah. Right. Anytime I put these inputs into this function, this function outputs a t. If I input a t and an f, if I input a f and a t, a t. If I input a f and a f, I get a t. Yeah. Okay. And so now we're on our last operator or our last connective. Yeah, alpha if and only if beta. Put parentheses around here. We're going to do a little bit better than the book, right? Or a little less casual than the book. Okay, so T, T, F, F, T, F, T, F. Okay. So this is going to be our equivalence operator. Yeah. And it's going to be defined as this. So I'm going to take a different route of explaining how we come to this. So T and T is going to be T, F, F, and then T. Okay. So this statement is only going to be true when both its components, both its atomic pieces, share the same truth value. Yeah? This is going to be this operator, this definition right here. Anything that's going to fit into this formula is going to be a biconditional statement. So here, we have that beta is the necessary condition for alpha over here. In this with, in my biconditional statements in my ordinary or my natural language, what I'm saying is that they are both necessary for each other. Yeah. So let's see here. What can we put in here? Let's say that alpha stands for if you have shape, beta stands for then you have form. Is it true that you have shape if and only if you have form? If I'm in a world in which all things that have shape also have form and all things that have form also have shape, then the statement if you have shape if and only if you have form, that's going to be true. If I'm in a world in which you can have shape and not have form, then the statement you have shape if and only if you have form, that would be false. How about this? Let's say it's false that I have shape, and yet in the same world, it's a fact that something has form or that I have form. That statement's going to be false. The statement, you have shape if and only if you have form, it's going to be false. Now let's say that you have shape is false and you have form is false. Is that enough to show for the falsity of the conditional statement, you have shape if and only if you have false? For sure not, right? The only time these are going to be false is when these guys have different truth values. Yeah. They're both necessary for each other. Yeah. In this first line, this is true and this is true. Thus, the relationship is maintained, right? This is false. This is false. If I don't have shape, then I don't have form. You have shape if and only if you have form. That's going to be true, right? Okay. And so, right, now that I have these definitions, so you guys should be following along in the book, so you guys can look at the definitions. Let's see here, like 434 or 443, and then we have all the way to 343, all the way to 345. Right. So I feel bad I don't have a bigger board like in class where I could just write down all the definitions and then walk over and show this is how I'm computing this or that. Follow along the book while we do this. Okay. Now let's start computing the truth of some statements. Okay. We're going to do it in the same way that the book does it. The book does such a good job right here. So let's say that A, B, and C, these guys are all true. And let's say that X, Y, and Z, these guys are all going to be false. Okay. Now, let's say I want to calculate the truth condition of this with, this well-formed formula. Remember, go back to the with rules I talked about in 6.1 and at the beginning of this lecture, right? You will see that this is a with, and because it's a with, if I know its atomic parts, it's simple parts, I should be able to calculate the truth of this entire compound with. Yeah. So How do I do that? Well, I look to my index. I see that A is true. So in a world in which A is true, so this is the world we're in. Let's say it's world, we'll just call it world 1. In world 1, you call it model 1 even, right? If you start doing like more advanced logic. Yeah. This proposition A is true, and I know by the definition of negation we gave earlier with the tables, not true is going to give me false. Okay. Now, let's say I have A and I have X. To calculate the truth of this compound proposition, I'm going to input the truth of its component parts, of its atomic pieces. Yeah? So if A is true and X is false, the statement A and X is going to be, by definition, it's going to be false, right? And this is why we're going to call this a function. It's just like a function, just like in your like basic algebra class in elementary school. I mean in junior high. Yeah. If I input this and this, if I input T and F into this functional operator, the operator is going to give me an F as an output. All right. Now let's say I want to compute this width. How do I do that? How do I do this? Well, I know it's a width because that's a width if alpha is a width. And alpha here would be a width. And I know that this is a width because, well, my rules tell me that this is a width, right? Okay, so since this is a formula within our language, I should be able to calculate the truth if I know the truth of its basic pieces. But yeah, this one's a lot more complex than the other one, right? Here we had simple letters, right, and one connective, but here now I have two connectives. How do I do this? Well, what I'm going to do, remember that all of these compound claims, their truth value is going to be determined by the truth value of their pieces. So I am going to describe this operator, this connective, as being my main connective, my main operator. That when I go to calculate the truth of this statement, this is going to be the main. This is going to be the main connective. This is going to be the last operator that gets an input. It's going to be the last. How do I say this? It's going to be the last function of the formula. It's going to be the last thing I'm going to use to compile. This is not a piece of this. And so, however, this is definitely a component piece of this bigger width. So to determine this bigger width, I'm going to go in and I'm going to determine the truth value of all the component parts first, starting from the most simple and building up to the most complex. Yeah? So let's start. What's the most simple proposition I have here within the WIF? What's my most simple WIF? Well, A is atomic and X is atomic. Okay? Now, what's my next simplest proposition? It's going to be what? X and or A and X. It's not going to be the not. The not is going to be a connective to the conjunction, not the conjunction. Yeah, we're not going to compute the truth of this with this. Yeah, we're going to compute the truth of this with this guy. So if I have A and if I have F and I have if I have Jesus Christ, you guys, if I have T and I have F, this is going to be F. And now, anytime I have not F, I know that that statement is true. This statement is a true statement. It's a true statement. Yeah? It's a true statement, at least in this world, in this valuation of the propositions. Yeah. Okay. In a world in which A is a fact and F is a fact, the statement, it's not true that A and X is a true statement. All right. So let me do like one or two more. Let's say I want to compute B and C. If B and C, then not Z. Okay. There we go. That's how the parentheses should look. And the parentheses should be indicators about which pieces are going to be my smallest pieces. Yeah. So what's my smallest piece here? Well, the smallest pieces are going to be my letters. So B is true, C is true, and Z is going to be false. Yeah. What's my next smallest piece? Well, I'm going to have, right? I'm going to have, well, yeah, this conjunction right here. This is going to be my main operator. It's the most outside of my punctuations, right? This is only going to be talking about this guy right here, okay? So I have T and T. That gives me, oops, Jesus. That gives me T as an output. Okay, now I have to do my next smallest piece. Well, I have an operator within this implication sign, within this conditional sign. I have an operator that hasn't been computed. So I have to determine if this is true. So not F is T. And now I'm left with this within my conditional claim. I have T, T, which gives me T. This statement, given this evaluation of the propositions, is true. Now let's say I put that there. This is now my new main operator. Okay. This is going to be the last function I compute the truth with. So not T is going to be F. Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into this homework and say goodbye to this long ass lecture. Let's see here. Where's the eraser? Hmm. Give me a second. That'd be tight if I stood up and I was wearing like, news. Never mind. Never mind. I should just shut up. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go straight to, number 1 here. 6.2, 1 through 10. 6.2i, 1 through 10. Okay, so we are going to identify the main operator in the following propositions. All right, so we are going to be looking at our punctuation symbols, at our parentheses. Yeah. For number 1, my main operator here is going to be my conjunction. Yeah. For number 2, my main operator here is going to be my conditional. Yeah. For number 3, my main operator here is going to be the tilde. For number 4, my main operator here is going to be my biconditional or my equivalence operator. 5, my main operator here is going to be, my conditional claim. My disjunctive claim or operator. For 6, I'm going to have, let me check parentheses. For 6, we're going to have not. So let me go through 6 just to make sure you guys are following. Yeah. So I'm going to try to draw it with their parentheses or with the book's parentheses. Not, use bracket. If P and not R. Damn it, I'm writing this way too big. It's so annoying writing on this little board. I really can't stand it. I'm ready for this lockdown to be done. And you know what else sucks? It's just like it's so hard to have like that it's hard to have that like that swagger while you give material, that ability to like fluently talk. That has completely disappeared on here. I feel like I don't know. Chatting like Martha Stewart when she's doing crafts, but I'm doing logic. All right. Okay. So here's number 6. Right? I said that number 6, the main operator is going to be the tilde. So this is going to be the one most outside. This is going to be the one most outside all the parentheses, outside of our punctuation symbols. So here, right, it's not going to be this because there's going to be an operator outside of the parentheses that contain this operator, which is not this. It's not and because, well, we have this outside its parentheses and this outside this parentheses. And even if I were to have something like this, the main operator here is going to be the conjunction. Yeah. So it's going to look like this if I put it in this purely logical form. So no, whatever P means and no matter what R means, I'm going to take the meaning out and just show the structure of what's going on here. The structure for the conjunction is going to be, let's say P would be alpha and this would be beta. Now, this with fits in here. This with fits in here. Okay. This is the more general right here. This conjunction is the more general. It's the more all-encompassing. It's the main portion of a whiff like this. The main portion of a statement like this. Yeah. This negation is just going to be a piece of a statement in this way. In the same way, this is just a piece about us saying not something. Yeah, so when I go to read that in English, and when I go to read number 6 in English, I read it like this. It's not the case, or I could just say not. So not if P and not R, then either not E or F. That's really complicated, but the video I'm going to upload along with this from YouTube, from this other guy's video, so it's just like way cooler than the video I'm doing. Yeah, he's going to go into how to read these things a little better. So for number 7, my main operator again is going to be, oh no, it's not going to be again. It's going to be the conditional claim. For number 8, I'm going to have my by conditional claim. For number 9, I'm going to have the and. So it's going to be E and then that whole whiff on the other side. The conjunction is the main operator here. And then 10. Let's see here. Let me check my brackets. The main operator here is going to be a negation. Yeah, this is the most outside of the brackets. Yeah. All right. It's scope, to quote the book. It's scope is the largest. All right. So let's jump to 3, 1 through 10. Yeah, or triple I, 1 through 10. Determine the truth values for the following symbolized statements. Let A, B, and C be true. So A, B, and C be true. And let's let X, Y, and Z be false. Okay, guys, this is this computing stuff. I'm now able to compute the truth of these statements necessarily. And then from here, we're going to bust open what we can do with this language. Okay. So I have A and X. We did this. T and F. Go back to those definitions of the of our operators. This is going to output an F. That's 1. For 2, B and not Y. I'm going to put parentheses on. Okay. I have B is true. Y is false. Okay. So what's my next component? Well, my main operator is going to be the AND. So I'm going to come here. Not F is T. And then I have T and T give me T. This statement is true in this world. A world in which A is T, B is T, C is T, X is F, Y is F, and Z is F. For 3, I have either X or not Y. So X is false, not Y is false. My main operator here, my main connective is going to be the disjunction. So I'm going to start here. Not F is T. And if I put an F and a T into the disjunction, I output a T. 3 is true. Yeah. Okay, let's go 4 over here. Okay, I have not, either not C or Z. Yeah, okay. My main operator here is going to be my disjunction. So this is going to be T, this is going to be F. Not T is F. Cross that out if I want. F and F, when plugged into this disjunction, give me, if I say either false or false, that's going to always give me that false. It's the only time disjunctions are true, or false, when both its component parts are false. Okay, 5. If B, then not Z. Okay. B is going to be T. Z is going to be F. Not F is T. If B is true and not Z is true, then this statement is true. T and T with this conditional claim output me a T. 6. If Y, then not A. You guys pay attention to how I'm reading these. Y is false. A is T. I can already check this. I can already tell that because this is false, the whole statement's going to be true. Yeah. But let's go ahead. Not T is F. So if F, then F, that gives me a big OT. Yeah. Let's see here. Not X. Where am I? 7. If not X, then Z. Okay. Z is going to be false. X is going to be false. So not X is going to be true. So I have a true, and then I have a false. That separated here gives me a false. Yeah. My sufficient condition is true. My necessary condition is false. The only recipe for a false conditional. Yeah. So then I have 8. 8 is going to give me B if and only if Y. And that's going to give me, let's see here, T and F. These are two different truth values, and it gives me a big fat F. 8 is false. All right. Let's see here. 9. Not C if and only if V or Z. Am I writing this right? Yeah. Okay, so my small parts first. T and F. Not T is going to be F. F and F with this function right here outputs me a big old fat T. It's true. Yeah. So, and then we have 10. Yeah. So, it's not the case that A and not Z. It's not true that A and not Z. So T, F, not F is T. T and T gives me a T. And then not this, it's false. So if I were to say it's not true that A and not Z, in this world, that statement is going to be false. Yeah? Okay. So let's go straight to, let's see here. Yeah, 4. Okay. When possible, determine the truth values of the formalized statement. Let A and B be true, Y and Z be false, P and Q have unknown truth values. Okay, so now we're going to get into some necessary talk. Let's change our world. Okay, we're in a new world now. Yeah. Oh, we actually could be in the same world. So A and B, these guys are going to be true. Okay. Call this world 2. Then we have what do they say? Y and Z, yeah. Y and Z be false. Okay. And then we'll have P. Do they use capital? They use capital, yeah. P and Q. We don't know. We don't know. Okay. So when possible, we're going to calculate the truth of these whiffs. So 1 is either A or P. I know that A is true. I don't know what P is. Do I need to know what P is to determine if this well-formed formula is true? Negative. Anytime I put a T into a disjunction, I output a T. Yeah. Only time it's false is when both of the disjuncts, both of the component pieces of the whiff are false. We know that's not true given that A. Yeah. Okay, so 2. Either Q or Z. So Z is false. We don't know what Q is. Yeah. Given the truth table here, T. Okay. Given our definition of a disjunction here, can I imagine a world in which this is true, or sorry, when this is false and this statement be true? Can I imagine that world? Yeah, really easy. Yeah. It would be line 2 in the definition. Can I imagine it in which this is false? Of course, line 4. Yeah. Do I have enough information to compute the truth of this whiff without knowing Q? Not in this instance. Yeah. If Z happened to be T, then yeah, I could. Yeah, but that's not the case we're in. That's not the world we're in. Yeah. We're not in a true Z world. Yeah. Let's see here. So 3. Q and Y. So Y is false. I don't know what the hell Q is. I know from the definition of a conjunction, just like this, that this has to be false. These statements are only true when both of the conjuncts are true and both the components are true. Yeah. Okay, 4. Q and A. Q and A. Again, A is true, but I need to know whether or not Q is in fact true. I don't know about number 4, and neither do you. Yeah. Okay. If P, then B. I know that B is true. Yeah. I know that B is true. Do I need to know what P is to determine the truth of this compound with. Let's go back to our definition. If P, if alpha, then beta. So for any width that ends up like this, T, T, F, F, T, F, T, F, T, F, T, T. Is there ever a time in which my necessary condition is true and my entire statement is false? Nope. And nope. I know that if B is true, the conditional statement if P, then B is true. Yeah. And you know that without knowing a goddamn thing about what P is. Okay. So, I'm gonna, for who's in the chat, in the chat, who's watching right now? It shows 2 people. Show yourself. Who's here? I want to see. If you write your name right now, I'll give you crazy extra credit. Crazy extra credit. Let's see here. It's the end of the video. Yeah. Who's here? I didn't announce that I was going live, so it's like tripping me out that there are people on. Hey, Raymond, dude, gosh dang it, Ray. I need to send you that stuff. That is so okay, Ray. Real quick question. Were you on last time as well? And I asked who was here and they didn't say anything. Was that you? No, that couldn't have been because you guys didn't know. Unless that was probably one of my B9 students. Who else is there? Anthony, are you there? Is that you, Martinez? Okay. All right, Ray. Let me send you some stuff. Let me send you some stuff this afternoon. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's funny. I think half this class didn't even watch the last video. My B9 class, though, it's got like 3 times the amount of views than there are people in the class. So I know they're stressing. All right, Ray. Man, thanks for speaking up. Did this make sense to you? Okay, Ray, don't lie to me. Are you sure it made sense? It's hard to talk. It's hard to talk when when there's no one here to talk to. I'm just rambling and then I end up just like I don't know. Yeah, it just doesn't sound so smooth. All right, Ray, let me message you on Canvas. I forgot to send you that document for our little arrangement. Needed a better understanding. Needed as in past tense, or you need a better understanding? Yes, okay, yes. The letters in the book are kind of confusing. That's why I switched to the alpha and the beta. Yeah. Oh, okay, you need, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so when the book talks about, so you see how I'm defining this stuff with the alpha and the beta? So when I want to say, okay, what does this mean? What does the dot mean? Well, the dot means that anytime you give me some formula and another formula, the only time they can be true is if both the parts are true. Oops. Okay, so anytime this dot, what this dot means is that this whole width, the whole formula is true. So this is like the main truth value. The whole formula is true only when both of its parts are true. And when we think about something like that being true, right? And, right? That if that's true as a fact, and this is true as a fact, then the idea that alpha and beta is true is exactly that. They're actually the case. Anytime one of these aren't true, anytime one of these aren't a fact, like here or both there, the statement ends up being false. And so in the letter, I mean, when the book uses, they don't use these like these Greek letters, but instead they take our English letters. So we have A and B, and they come here, lowercase a and lowercase b. Or they even use lowercase p and lowercase q, right? So these letters, these formula here, these are going to be propositional variables. These letters over here, these are going to be propositional constants. Okay. So when I write, yes, okay. 46, yeah. Okay, let me see. Yeah, okay. So individual letters. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so let me go about it in this way then. Okay. So these are going to be the propositional stuff. I mean, these are going to be the variables. They're variables because they don't mean anything, just like x and y in algebra. Right. But we call these constants because they mean something actually in the world. Right. In fact, if this doesn't represent anything like this, then this actually isn't a proposition. That's like kind of complicated too. Okay. So when we look at 340, so with that in mind, okay, when we look at 346 and you see that so if either A or D, then E. Yeah. The main operator here is going to be this guy. This argument form is going to be an instance of this right here, alpha or if alpha, then beta. So this right here can fit inside this argument form. So to determine the truth value of this statement, of the horseshoe, we need to determine the truth value of both its parts. So for E, I mean, for whatever would fit in here, here it's E. Beta would then end up being E. E would be false. And then alpha would be alpha, I mean, if either A, then D. So now I have a new variable. I have a variable inside of it. I mean, this would be an instance of this. So to figure out this, which I want to figure out because I want to figure out this, I need to look at this definition. This definition here and plug in what I have. So what do I have? This would be false. This would be, let's see here. This would be T, which gives me T. So if you go back to the definition with just the variables, right? Anytime this was T and this was F, the whole thing was F. Yeah. This whole statement is F then. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And so like if you look at like the order of operations, you see how I have two argument instances within this single with. I have this as the structure of the main argument, and then I have this as the argument structure of a piece of this main argument, right? And so if you look at like this order of operations, number one, individual letters representing small propositions. We deal with this first, yeah? Then we go to any negations that are directly talking about these small pieces. Then we go to operators conjoining, right, these letters. And then I go to tildes immediately preceding parentheses. And then we go on and we go on and we go on, right? And we go from biggest to smallest, yeah? If you think about like FOIL or the order of operations you would learn in like elementary school, it's getting at the same sort of thing, right? Just a little more complicated because, yeah, we don't, until you're doing like math foundations, you don't really understand that multiplication is really made up of addition and this sorts of things, right? Yeah, this is the same type of order of operations that you would see in like basic arithmetic. Yeah. Anyways, Ray, does that help at all, or is that just way more confusing? It says Ray left chat. No, I was just kidding. Ray, what does that help or no? What sucks is that I can't see your face and like read your eyes, you know, or like ask you if you understood at any point. Okay, Ray. I don't know why, but I feel like you're just being nice. All right. Let me I'll get at you later this afternoon. All right, you guys, for anyone that stuck it to the end, whoever this other person is, yeah, I'll upload our next assignment, and I'm going to upload a supplementary video that is a little more. I think it's more practical than the way I go about showing it, right? With the whole definitions and this sort of stuff. Ray, if you want a good logic book, I would, if I was you, I would get this book right here. And since you're in this class, or since you're in here, all right, I will help you pay for it if you feel like picking it up. Okay, so yeah, the videos I'm uploading along with this are a lot simpler than the way that I'm showing it here. So like, there we go. That's our definition of with, definition of, or the meaning behind our operators. Yeah, there's this kind of way. Yeah, which is not too different from the book, but it's more like meta than what our text is. Our text is about being able to work within the logic. These last two lectures have been more about like trying to understand why we're doing what we're doing, or how do we come up with, how do we come up with a language in the first place, right? And that's something, we're not exactly all the way through yet either. I'll upload some more assignments, upload that other video, and all right, I'll talk to you later. See you, Ray. Give me a like and subscribe. No, I'm just joking. Don't subscribe. All right, man. See ya. See you guys.